Very much. Thank you, Trustee Williams King, and I think Hastings is also online. Is that correct?
Yes.
Wonderful. We have our wonderful staff here in the room with us. And I think it is, 3:01. We'll get going. Welcome to the Bylaw Review Subcommittee meeting for Thursday, May 22nd. If you are able, please stand for the land acknowledgement. Sorry. We acknowledge we're hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. Thank you very much. We are looking at the approval of the agenda, where we're really just discussing bylaws. Congratulations, committee members. Our reports passed last night on the consent agenda. Thank you for the great work. I'm not quite holding out the same hope for if bylaws will pass on the consent agenda, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because we really do need the discussion and the complete buy-in of everyone. So may I have a motion, please, to move the agenda? Thank you, Trustee McLean, and online.
King.
Thank you very much, Trustee King. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Are there any delegations? No delegations today. So we're going to go right to the main item, which is number 5, the revisions to the board bylaws. And just for your information, I don't know if any committee members received any emails back from colleagues about the information in this agenda. I did not. I'm assuming people were consumed with other items this week. But just so you know, so we're really starting. The starting point is this agenda without other comments in. So I'm turning it over to staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I'll just make a few introductory remarks. Thanks to everyone who's been involved in providing feedback so far on the piece-by-piece approach that we've taken to do a deeper dive, the survey and so on. And so what Vitaly Plotnikov and his team have done is to try to translate all the feedback. And in some cases where there may not have been consensus, we put forth at least one proposal, again, to generate discussion. We don't anticipate this will pass as is, but we gave it a shot anyways. But please do hang on for a bit because Vitaly will be walking us through this document. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. And through you, Madam Chair, the report that we brought to this meeting for consideration includes the list of items that were discussed earlier. And we, as Associate Director mentioned, we tried to capture that in the actual draft bylaws that is attached to this report as Appendix A. Madam Chair, we suggest perhaps that we could just go page by page, beginning from the very first page, and kind of that will give us a little bit of understanding in terms of revisions and the flow, logical flow of the documents. As Associate Director mentioned, in some sections we incorporated options, again, to remind that there was discussion, there was no consensus, and we would perhaps want to take a look and make determination on the preferred recommendation.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm hoping that that makes sense to the rest of the committee members. So we're going to start at the agenda on page, forget the table of contents, page 11, which is page 5. And please just walk us through. And if people want to make comments, great. Otherwise, you'll just continue until you're interrupted. How is that?
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So on page 5, we incorporated reference to Indigenous student trustees as well as student trustees. And later on, you will see definitions for both. On page 6, under 132, It's just a bit of wordsmithing to make it a little bit more clear. Hopefully we achieve that. We are moving to page 10. Under that page, we have definition of Indigenous student trustee. And as I said, we kept them separate from student trustee definition. And under definition of member, again, along with student trustee, we included reference to Indigenous student trustee. Very minor correction on page 11, just grammar. On page 12, as you can see, we deleted definition of receive. The recommendation is to abandon concept of motion to receive. We had discussion on that. There were various opinions. So if the committee wishes to discuss that further.
I think what the committee might be interested in is procedurally what that might look like on an agenda. So that would be to come. So I think there was general agreement, I believe, to that receipt was meaningless because staff would be continuing to work anyway. But what that would actually mean, because when if I can remind people, when we do a governance and policy agenda that just lists procedures, we don't approve or receive, but if people have questions, they can ask questions of it. And I think there's a sense, at least from my perspective, that it should be positioned in a way that if people have questions, they could still ask questions. And I don't know if any colleagues have comments on that. Trustee McLean, I see you first.
And through you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I think we want to get out of the process of approving things for receipt, right? Like that's what this is designed to do. So but I do think it needs to be clear if we're not going to use, that this is presented for information and eliminating the whole, I think the word to receive is beneficial because it will take with it the assumption that people are going to have to approve receipt. And that is, it's not good governance and sometimes we get in trouble because they choose not to receive it because they don't like what it says. And that's kind of not good governance kind of thing.
Thank you. Trustee King.
Thank you, through your chair. I think that if we are removing a term, we could consider replacing a term. So to the point earlier, it might just be providing a bit of a definition on what for information means in terms of what it allows.
Thank you for that.
Or another term if it's not for information, whatever it is.
Regular update, whatever. Associate Director.
Through the chair, we will take a look at that. I think ultimately our goal was to remove the need for a vote. And so we'll build something in that acknowledges that type of concept of receiving something without a vote.
Thank you. And I appreciate it. And I do think there will be interest in what that might look like from the committee before we move forward. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, please go ahead to page 13.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On page 12, though, we tweaked
sorry.
a little bit definition of recorded vote. And in connection to that, on page 13, we added new definition of secret ballot. And you can see consistency. We kind of tried to make them compatible, those definitions.
Yep, please go ahead.
Okay. And
Sorry.
then,
Oh, sorry, Trustee McLean.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Are we having a third type then? Like there's a recorded vote, but most of our votes are are not, like there's a third option, right? Like most of our votes aren't recorded, but if you're in the room, you can see them, but they don't live forever. Like if you see the screen, but that doesn't make them secret either, because the secret ballot usually pertains to our election processes and whatnot. So there's three. So all three are here?
No, a regular vote doesn't get recorded in minutes. It just is pass or fail. If you read through our minutes, if you actually ask for a recorded vote, who voted for and who voted against is recorded for posterity in the minutes.
Okay, but we still take three types of votes, like, right? Or
A regular vote is a vote.
okay.
Through the chair, just secret ballot really a vote for positions on committees, and that's what we've used so far. And recorded vote really on motions. That's what I've, and then of course there's open ballot. So
Right.
if it's not secret ballot, it's open ballot, and we can see who gets voted onto a committee or some sort of representative. So for different functions, there are different types of votes.
Right, but if I was just reading this, I'd be going, there's two types. It's either recorded or it's secret. And then the reality there's the traditional vote that we do 90% of the time are neither recorded or secret. Like they're,
So to just add in a definition of a vote.
Okay. Sorry.
But on secret ballot, you could choose to define it as for chairs of for member positions or something, like define it, because that's the only reason why we use secret votes. As opposed to
Yes,
just secret.
trustee assignments,
Yeah, for trustee, however, whatever the appropriate language
whether they be
is.
on chairs or to go
Right.
represent us at committee.
Right.
Mhm.
Trustee King?
Thank you, through you, Chair. I think I just answered my own question, but it might point to somewhere where clarity is needed. I was just wondering if on the first line of secret ballot, if that's actually valid, that the voting method in which members' voting choices are kept confidential. I originally read that as the voting choices being the options, the names that would be on a ballot, and those aren't confidential. But I'm now rereading it and re-understanding it as the choices that you've made are confidential. So I don't know if that was just me, or if there is some clarity needed.
Well, they're pondering, so we'll move on, and I think we'll leave them pondering if they can make it clearer.
So
Trustee McLean.
through the chair, and this happened to me, so this is like my personal experience. I ran for a position that I didn't get. And it would have been helpful to me to see the count. Like I was never interested in who voted for, like how the vote was done, but has there ever been any consideration to letting the people involved be aware of the number if they were interested? I can see why you wouldn't want to make it necessarily public to protect a 21-to-1 vote kind of thing. So that would create a really awkward scenario you wouldn't want to do. But if the people whose name were on the ballot wanted to know not who voted for who, because that should always remain private, but if they were interested in getting a numerical understanding of how the ballot had gone, is that something that we've ever considered?
Not during my years as a trustee.
Through the chair, not in my experience here, and Denise Joseph Dowers may have some even more historical information, but the method in which the votes are done and results shared, that can be designed by the Board of Trustees if they wish. So if the board wants to have the results without the names, of course, shown in a vote count, that's a decision of the board to make.
Yeah, so I want to be clear. I'm not suggesting that, because I do think what we do now protects a 21-to-1 scenario, which could be embarrassing, and I approve of that. Like, I think that would be awkward, and that would be really potentially damaging. Just having lost, it was valuable to me. I asked Ms. Joseph Dowers if I was permitted, I had no interest in who voted for who. Like I did, but the number I would have learned something from knowing the breakdown of the number.
So just to probe further, instead, would that be a report to board or just the interested affected candidates or candidates may inquire as to the vote count?
Right, upon request, within 3 days or something, within a finite period of time.
Because they destroy the ballots immediately, right?
But oh, okay. So you wouldn't
Um,
necessarily have written it down anyway.
Through the chair, we, when I used to be a scrutineer with Denise Joseph Dowers, we did write down the numbers of votes and stuff like that in order to determine who eventually was elected to that particular role. Our practice, not written anywhere, was not to share that information with anyone anywhere, and the ballots are supposed to be destroyed as soon as we can, although we tend to run back into the meeting. So perhaps Denise Joseph Dowers can maybe share some additional insight.
And through the chair, yes, the ballots are destroyed right after the meeting. And the information is not shared with anyone, the results.
What are your thoughts about if the affected candidates, I don't know what the right wording is, requested the vote count?
I don't see that as helpful to most. I know what Trustee McLean is saying, but I could see that being problematic.
Okay.
I'm good. I'm good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Please move on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So page 13, student trustee definition. Sourced from policy student leadership P070.
May I just ask a question? When the election's held, the student is in grade 10, can be in grade 10, right? But in their term of office, does that matter? Because we've had kids elected in grade 10.
Through the chair, just in reading the definition, the point in time which they're in grade or 11 or 12 is when they represent the interests of students, not when the vote actually occurs.
Okay, but it doesn't say when their term starts or when their term doesn't start, or student trustees means a student and they sit beginning in the fall, or like, because their time is not our time, right? I'm just thinking about that.
Why don't we take another look? I'm also mindful we don't want to overcomplicate the definition
Agreed.
when policy already covers it, but let us take a look. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So then we are moving to page 15, section 211. There was a comment about aligning the language in that paragraph closer to the Education Act, which we tried.
Yep.
I should add, through the chair, as we went through the bylaw, there were some provisions in which the language was a bit more unnecessary than a bylaw would normally be in order to help govern a meeting. So there were provisions in there that urged trustees to do this and do that, which really is not helpful, conducive to running a meeting. So we've tried to eliminate that, and 2.1.1 is an example of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. So page 17, section 2.5, we incorporated the language with regard to Indigenous student trustees, and section 5 252, again sourced from policy P070, student leadership. You can see provision there. And then we incorporated references to Indigenous student trustees. We can now move to page 19. So in section 311, the change under F was made based on the resolution of the Board of Trustees of May 22, 2024. So it was done earlier. Page 20. Additional provision 343 with regard to secret ballot and recorded vote. Okay, from here we're moving.
Time out.
Yep.
This week, why would there be a recorded vote on the chair, the vice chair of the committee? I'm not sure this makes sense to me unless I'm misreading it.
Sorry?
3.4.3, for the chair or the vice chair of a committee, the vote will be conducted by secret ballot unless a recorded vote is requested and approved?
Traditionally, well, I guess it varies, but sometimes
It's not a recorded vote.
sometimes it's just a show of hands. Like sometimes it's
Yeah, but
like it's as informal as,
I agree, but a recorded vote, to me, that language has already been defined, and that would mean it's recorded in the minutes that this chair won 4-3 or 2-1 or.
and these
So I'm
people,
not sure recorded
and
is
these
the right
people voted for them.
language.
right? Like not only would it say what the vote was, it would also say who voted for who in a
Yeah.
recorded vote scenario.
So I'm not sure that's the appropriate language to get that thought across.
Through the chair, so we tried to incorporate the default secret ballot in there, and what we can do is remove the reference to recorded vote. So that all elections.
Just leave it as secret ballot, like.
Yes, so the vote will be conducted by secret ballot, period.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's easier. Any colleagues have any concerns about that? I'm not seeing any hands, so I think that just is cleaner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Okay. Page 25. So in section 4.11.12, we made a revision to the name of the CAC, Community Advisory Committee.
Yeah.
The decision was made earlier.
Is the name of the 2S LGBTQ plus committee name changed to add the 2IA in?
Did it?
Is that committee name, are those acronyms still valid?
I don't recall, but we can check again.
If you could just
Yeah.
check again.
Thank you.
I know, I think, are you on that committee, Trustee King?
I am, and there has not been any official change.
Okay, thank you so much.
So we incorporated language with regard to community advisory committees 4.11.5 and 4.11.6, as you can see, in terms of speaking time. Each community advisory committee will have up to 15 minutes to present their report.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you. Page 27. This is in connection to request to include definitions on negative, critical, derogatory. So we reworded this provision and hopefully we addressed the concerns. because we explained what those, this statement is, public meetings participants must maintain respectful and orderly conduct, refraining from behavior that disrupts meetings. And then we explained in the next sentence what those could be.
Trustee McLean, can I pass it to you for a minute?
Yeah.
Though we're being very informal. What about signage? I think that this includes avoiding loud noises, physical cut, displaying signage or whatever that language is.
Mhm.
Thank you.
We can add that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, sorry, one more. Having trouble getting off mute quickly enough.
No problem. Thank you, Trustee King.
Would it be prudent to add, but not limited to?
Probably.
Thank you.
She said to add, but not limited to. So these are examples, but not limited to. That's great. Thank you. If you can't see, I see nods over here, so appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Chair, we are now on page 31. So the provision that was deleted 571, that change will take place on September 1st, 2025. The legislation come into effect, this provision will come into effect. And we included provision that will replace it, again, based on the legislation and timelines, which means that the revised bylaws should be aligned with that date, September 1st, 2025.
Perfect.
And 572, we included the provision again, based on the legislation with regard to in-person attendance.
May I ask another question? 5.7.4, during the pregnancy or parental leave, the trustee will retain membership at committees. What about at board? Like voting? Because I've been surprised that people on leave come back for votes. Should that be here or not, I guess? Because you retain membership at committees, but it doesn't say that you can appear for votes.
Through the chair, we'll take a look at that just to make sure.
If you can, when I've questioned that,
Yeah.
I've been told that it's in the act that even if you're on leave, you're entitled to voting. It sounds very odd to me that you would take a leave of absence that has been approved by the board and then come back for a vote during that leave of absence. So I just would like clarity here. Trustee McLean?
Yeah, and this is interesting to me as well, because for some committees, we only send one or two, we send limited members. And this assumes that the people on pregnancy or parental leave are interested in serving in these committees while they're off. If they're not, and we want to send, like if we only send one person to the committee and that person is on maternity leave or parental leave, and they have no interest in, like they want to step away and see to those family requirements, and they have no interest in assuming those duties, like I think the board should have the opportunity to replace them to make sure there's a voice on the committee looking after our interests and being responsive to what the public or whatever, if it's TLC, to that, like if it's a TLC member that stepped away and we want, 4 trustees in the room when those decisions are made, the TLC person may not be wanting while they're away, and the board may want a 4th trustee in the room. So I think they should have to declare, I guess, is there should be real clarity if you leave, what that means. You're either going to, either give up your areas of responsibility while you're away, or declare that you're going to not do those, but still do these if you like. Like, I'm not sure what we want to do with that, but I don't think it should be totally vacant and then solely at the discretion of the people who told us they wanted to leave.
Right. So you're thinking of more like the external things like the school board, city committee, or TLC, or things where the board appoints them as representatives representing the whole, like they're there. It's not a committee meeting. Like a
Not just
standing
meetings,
committee.
but their rights and privileges as a representative.
right.
Okay.
But even at advisory committees,
Oh,
we-
advisory committees.
we send people that they can ask questions of. And if,
Right.
who wants a committee that doesn't like,
Have a
the
trustee.
the committee's not going to be happy if there's no trustee representation at the committee. They can't ask questions. They can't, share their perspectives. And the person who was on it has opted for a leave, and that's great. But there should just be clarity to make sure that our interests as a board are represented, and in such that we are making sure that we're available to the people that we serve, and through the committees. So
Trustee King?
I've also had this question about rights and responsibilities while on leave, in consideration of parental leave, but also different personal leaves, for instance, running for other orders of government. I think this warrants a look in and of itself versus this section of the bylaws, which is more specifically about attendance. I think there could be a whole other clause that looks at responsibilities during leaves.
Thank you. Associate Director?
Through the chair, I'm on the same page. We're just having a side discussion about the need to examine this more closely, not just with respect to parental and pregnancy leave, other types of leaves, what their privileges are and rights are during that time. So we'll take a look at that. And Vitaly Plotnikov was also mentioning that perhaps more of the details can be dealt with when we review the actual policy.
No.
Bylaws is really about meeting the conduct of a meeting. So we'll make sure that that's also added to our list of to-do.
Right. And just to add a commentary, if you're on, if you have a job and you're on pregnancy leave and you get unemployment or whatever, and you come to a meeting, it affects your ability for that other compensation as well. So it is a little bit complicated, I believe, in some circumstances. Thank you. Anything further, Trustee King?
No, that was all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Page 32, we just updated the reference to policy attendance and participation in board and committee meetings policy in section 582. And then we are moving to page 34, again, reference to Indigenous student trustees. Then we are on page 36, celebrating board activities at board meetings only. And in that provision, we suggested the following. At regular board meetings, celebrating board activities will be up to a maximum of 10 minutes per item and must not exceed the overall time allotment of 30 minutes per meeting.
sorry.
Trustee McLean.
Thank you. Through you. I gather this means that there's three of them? Is that what there's 3 10s? Is that what 30 is a byproduct? Because some months we do 3. Is that what this is?
Yes, in February, in many years in the past in February, because there is no January meeting, the January Heritage Month, I believe is Tamil, is often recognized in February along with Chinese Heritage and African Heritage Month. So it is a jammed, packed February meeting. So we thought we need to extend the maximum to incorporate
Up to 3.
that particular circumstance.
I'm uncomfortable with this. Not the 10 minutes. Like, I think the chair should be expected to hold each group to 10 minutes. And that will in itself.
Right, because there could be 4 hypothetically.
Right, but if the chair didn't do their responsibility and the first group ran 5 minutes long, right? Then the second group did their 10 on 10. The concept that the chair was going to then put the hammer down at 30 minutes, 5 minutes into the last group, because he lost control or didn't pay enough attention early, I think is problematic. I think in that scenario, the last group would get 10 minutes. Like, I don't think the 30, I understand why it works in a perfect scenario, but I think if we just stick to the expectation of
10 minutes.
10
per item.
minutes, the 30 looks after itself.
Good point. Thank you.
Through the chair, and please note, sometimes there are some board activities that are not related to a Heritage Month.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. We are on next page, 37, section 513.12. Yes, so two sets of changes. One, we removed unlimited number of speaking time, speaking, replaced with 3, up to 3. And then you see 4 options. The last option, it would replace the entire provision, because it will say, it says at committee members may speak up to 2 times, not 3, 2 times each, or to each motion or matter under consideration, up to 5 minutes each time. So slightly different option. And the first 3 options are just a matter of different minutes.
And through the chair, when we considered option number 2, which was one of the ideas raised, 5, 3, and 3, we were concerned about the ability of the chair to be able to track that through multiple rounds. So option number 3, which is what staff are recommending, allows to cycle through as many trustees as possible, but also an opportunity to hear from other trustees and questions. So longer rounds, shorter time period, 9 minutes in total, or option 4 is 10 minutes in total, but 2 rounds. Thanks.
Thank you. Trustee McLean, I'll put myself on the list after you.
Thank you, through you. So option 2, 5 minutes for the first time. So the chair does a first round. Everyone gets 5 minutes. Okay, then we go to round 2. So those are theoretically 3 minutes. But if someone didn't speak in round 1, and they choose to speak in the second round, do they get 5 minutes or do they get 3 minutes?
That's why they took out option 2. They think it should be either 1 or 3. They put it in, but they just spoke against
Okay.
not
so-
recommending it.
Oh, okay, but so you want us, so that,
Through the chair, because we didn't go into the fine details of what 5, 3, and 3 would look like. Again, it's too complicated, especially when it's at 11:30 at night. I think it's going to be really challenging.
10:30 if the bylaws.
10:30. Well, if we get our way, it'll be in 8:30. But something more simpler. You can still have the maximum
Simple.
amount. Yeah,
3 or 5.
still maximum amount of time. Less concern, I think, also on staff having to do the timer and trying to figure that out. And so if we can come to something where you can land on, again, is it the concern is multiple rounds or maximum time?
Please go ahead.
okay, and through you and I like the 3 and 3, so I'll just be, and option 4 about, like, I was the one that threw that 2-minute thing out there. I still, I think it has merit, but I don't think the time in which our meeting, we just don't get things done we don't do business often enough there's just too much on the plate all the time. I do think there are times when it would be helpful to be able to get back in and make a brief point, but the extent at which it would prolong what is already becoming really hard for us, I think is problematic. So for the slight good it would do, I don't think in the big picture, the risk reward isn't worth it. So I don't think that option 4 is a good idea.
So is your preference is option 3?
Yes,
Thank you very much. If I can pass the chair.
please.
What was interesting at Toronto Lands Corporation, and you're all on it, is their style at the beginning after the city was the first round is questions. Like you don't make comments at all. You don't say whether you like something or you don't like something. You're just asking questions of clarification from staff. Have we ever considered anything like that? Because right now you stop the clock, right? And then it's, is the clock started? Isn't the clock started? So have we ever considered, and I'm just throwing it out there, I don't mean to complicate things. The first round is just questions of clarification. Are there any questions of clarification on what's before us in the recommendation? And then that's just one round. You can ask questions of staff. And then during the discussion, then it could be the 3 minutes, and that's not to ask any questions. That's simply to make your points. I'm just interested if that's too much of a change, but I thought it was interesting. We actually moved TLC to our way of doing the work. But when it started there, that's what John said they do at council. They just do questions and don't have debate or conversation about what's actually before them. They just seek clarification questions from their staff. Anyway, I just threw that out there if anybody has a thought. Trustee McLean.
Yeah, I respectfully, through you here, or I'm not sure who's got the floor. Anyway, yeah, I really dislike
Okay.
just because the idea that someone will say something that generates a question. Now, I didn't have the question earlier, but then my colleague raised an interesting point that I now have a question, and in theory, that opportunity's gone if we can't ask questions of staff anymore. So I think that would be problematic. I think.
Okay, okay, thank you. If I have to vote, my vote would be option 1. I think to go from as many times as you want at 5 minutes to 3 at 5 minutes is enough of a change. I'm trying to think of engendering the support of the whole board. Trustee King and Trustee Williams on this one, I think you do have to speak. Thank you, Trustee King.
I'm comfortable sticking with option number 1. I feel like there needs to be at least one opportunity to have the 5 minutes, I think, to express fully what you mean, what you want to express. But I agree that trying to manage different durations and different rounds might be challenging. So I would default back to option 1.
Trustee Williams?
Hi there. Yes, so I would support that option as well.
Okie doke. Thank you, Trustee McLean. I think we have consensus. Are you opposed to that consensus,
No,
Trustee
that's
McLean?
Great.
Fine. I just wanted to double check.
That's fine.
Thank you very much. Moving on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the same page, 5, 13, 14, at committee, members of the committee will be giving speaking priority. That was a recommendation. So it's essentially that would be option 2. Option 1, we do not include this.
Okay, I think I was the one that made this one, and now I'm having second thoughts about it. So I'd like to hear from my other colleagues. Trustee McLean.
Yeah, I'm going to respectfully decline. I don't think this is a good idea.
Trustee King and Williams, would you object if we got rid of 3.14 as a thought?
I'm okay with it being removed.
And Trustee King?
Same.
Thank you very much. Okay. It's good to have second sober thoughts about things. It really is. Especially I keep thinking engendering the support of my colleagues that aren't here, engendering the support of the whole board, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we're on page 39. Again, included references to Indigenous student trustees. And then at the bottom, 5, 14, 15, clarification about minority report. It's the item on the committee report that could be removed, not the entire report. And then we reference sections that explain the process. And then at the end, on the next page, 5:14:16, the statement that the chair will call for remover on the minority report for consideration. So there was a comment from the committee about making members aware. So that's our kind of revision to that effect.
I have a question, Trustee McLean. Does a minority report need to be seconded to be on the floor?
We'll have to double check.
Okay,
Through
because
the
right
chair, I
now,
would just
any
ask-
motion that comes before us needs a seconder, or else it's not considered. I'm assuming a minority report might need the same, but I think that needs clarification.
I was going to ask Denise.
Trustee
Yeah,
Williams?
through the chair, sorry.
Or sorry,
Yeah.
not Trustee Joseph Towers. Ms. Joseph Towers?
Yes, as with every
When
other
does she get
motion.
promoted?
Didn't mean your
Okay.
demotion.
Thank you. As with every other motion, it should require a seconder to get it on the floor for discussion.
So it does need a seconder.
Yeah,
Maybe that
that has
just,
been the practice.
yeah. So I think we just need to clarify.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else with their hands up? Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Page 40, section 5:15:2. Motions, including notices of motion, will be reviewed for consistency and compliance with the board resolutions, policies, and alignment with the motion template. The plan is to include motion templates as Appendix A. We're still working on that. And I believe that at this next meeting, we will have that document available.
And thank you, Trustee King, for making the connection to have that information passed to us. I found that really helpful. My question is, when you're doing this, where do the timelines come in? Is that going to be in the procedures, like how much in advance, what committee they move to, all of that stuff? Like if a motion has to be just, notices of motion need to be reviewed, do they have to be in, like thinking of governance staff and their regular work? All of a sudden, if they get 17 motions like we did of business arising from the pools or those, like, should there be, anyway, for regular motions, a timeline for business arising? There's no time, you know what I.
Through the chair, let us discuss with Denise Joseph Towers.
Excellent.
I do think timelines are really helpful.
Yeah, I think timelines are necessary to do it well, and for staff to have the time. So, any other comments online? Okay, no, perfect. Please move forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we're on page 43, which is motion to receive 5:15:23. As I mentioned earlier, we deleted that provision. And then the next one is extending meeting time, 5:15:24. So the change is the soft stop is at 10 and hard stop is 11.
Sorry, Trustee McLean, may I pass it to you? What I'm wondering, and this is a conversation, obviously with Ms. Joseph Towers and the director and the chair about meeting organizations after the next org board, once that provision, or for the fall, once the provision of the, you have to be in person comes into play. I'm wondering about the consideration. I know Wednesdays has been traditionally our meeting, private at 4:30, or committee meetings, they'll start at 4:30. I wondered if there needs to be some conversation about meeting times and changing the organizational chart for the August board meeting, leading up to the August board meeting. Because I don't think the current practice will work. I mean, we've approved the calendar for until the end of the cycle, but I'm wondering about thoughts about getting enough notice out to trustees if there's going to be a change and what that might look like, if there needs to be an informal survey, or because I did hear a conversation about where my understanding is that even the ADs are talking about which reports should go to which committees now, considering the changes in the alignment with the multi-year strategic plan, and the questioning of whether, well, if it goes to this committee, then what does that leave for the agenda for that committee? And if it goes to this, so, and because of the hard stop at 10, and if we don't start meetings until 6, and if there are delegations in front of meetings that take an hour, so the businesses start only starting at 7, so there's only 3 hours. So I guess the question is to think through some of the options and the potential of, maybe there's not 4 committees, maybe there's 3 committees. The potential of maybe there's not a one-day meeting, maybe meetings are scheduled for 2 consecutive days like they do at council. Anyway, it's just a thought, but I think that we may find ourselves in some difficulty if we're thinking of making that change not until like the November or December, because the org board is November, right? And then I wonder if the September, October meeting cycle might be, some people might have trouble. So anyway, I'm just saying that out loud, and I'm wondering if staff are already considering that.
Through the chair, I can't speak on behalf of Denise, but we have started thinking about that, especially with the in-person requirements. I would like to hear input from trustees though. And so what I would recommend is that the subcommittee start thinking about that. We can provide some options as well as staff, and then engage in a discussion at GPC when the report eventually goes there, because I think it will take quite a bit of time in order for 22 people to land on meeting time, considering the potential consequences of not attending a meeting in person.
I think that's an excellent idea. All I would advise is that I think the subcommittee might need the advice of staff on their thinking of which reports go where. So it becomes pretty obvious about the workload at some committees versus other committees and the cyclical nature of the work of some committees. But I think that is an excellent conversation to have at this committee. Trustee McLean.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Like I like the soft stop at 10, but have we established the board is starting at 6 yet?
Through the chair, I think that's something that's up for discussion as well.
Because this is problematic. If like we were 8:20 last night, we were 8:20 before we began the business of the board. Like we were 15, 16 minutes late coming out of dinner. We did, like, they were wonderful. It wasn't like it was bad use of time, but it was 8:20 before we started the business of the board.
So that
if we're not going to start at 6, then
at 7:30.
it's shutting this down at 10 becomes.
And through the chair, I have been thinking about, do we necessarily have to start on the hour, right? So does it have to be a public meeting starting at 7 o'clock? Why not 6:30? Do we need 1 hour for a dinner break? There's a lot of questions that I think all of us
thinking of already. So maybe you could bring some options.
We'll bring some options, and then we can have a more fulsome discussion.
Trustee King or Trustee Williams, are there any points that you'd like staff to consider as they think about their options?
Nothing from me.
Thank you. No, I think we're looking forward to this discussion. Please go on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we are moving to page 45. And this is with regard to notices of motion when they significantly change.
Yep.
So provision 5, 15, 52, and 53. Please take a look. So minor changes in wording, clarifications, or refinements that do not alter the intent or materially affect the implications of the motion will be permitted. Otherwise, it essentially has to be a new notice of motion.
Trustee McLean.
Yeah, I mean, through you, Chair, this seems a little subjective, that's all. The whole significantly is going to be a subjective concept that I think, I'm not sure the way around it. It's just, I think there's, the first time the first time someone suggests that that's a significant change and hands it back and telling you got to get back at the start of the line, I think you're going to get well, I don't really think it's significant. I think that, I think it builds on what I was trying to do earlier. So I just point that out. It's not that, because I do think these have a tendency to change and, you post one thing and then by the time it hits the floor, it's different. So I think it's important we look at it. I think it's subjective and I don't know how to get away from that, but.
One thought could be if the recommendations in a submitted notice of motion. Because oftentimes the notice of motion change, like the changes are more semantics and whereas clauses, but the recommendations don't often significantly change. So maybe the clarity is simply if the recommendations, because that's less subjective, Trustee McLean. That it's just a thought, Mr. Plotkoff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just wanted to highlight in 51552, we kind of defined what significant means. Significant changes include, but are not limited to. Yes, there is a certain extent of subjectivity, but at least we try to incorporate the key points and examples, changing the essential intent or outcome of the proposed motion, introducing new or materially different action or subject not reasonably inferable from the notice, or expanding the scope of the motion beyond what was described in the notice in a way that could impact board finances and budgets, stakeholder rights, responsibilities, or expectations.
And it goes on to affect the implications of the motions. I know Trustee King, 1 second, Associate Director is speaking,
worries.
and then I'll please go ahead.
Oh, me?
Leola, yeah.
Through the chair, yes, we struggled with this one as well. We thought this extensive language would help provide some principles underlying this. It's not unusual to have language like substantial, significant, materially different. It won't be easy to define that. But I do think by putting in the minor changes in wording and so on, I think it tells you what it isn't. I do believe this clause does provide sufficient information for the chair of a meeting to be able to make a decision.
Trustee King, please go ahead.
My comment was a little bit of a marriage of all of what we've heard. I agree that the word significantly itself can, even though you might not think it should, it can open itself to be subjective. But I actually think that there's a possibility of some wordsmithing that gets a jump from like right into what those examples are. I don't think I'm operating on full capacity right now with my thinking of the wordsmithing. But I think there's an opportunity to condense somewhere and just get to the point that if you're changing the outcome, the scope, yada, 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 that's the point.
Or recommendations.
Right. That's part of the yada, yada, yada.
Yada, yada, yada. I haven't thought about Seinfeld in a long time.
That was all, if I
Thank you.
clearly communicated that.
Trustee McLean.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So the determination of whether it's significant or not will be made by the chair of the meeting where it lands ultimately?
That's what through the chair, that's what we contemplate.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So page 47,
Sorry, can I go back?
Oh, sorry. No, please go ahead.
Sorry, I'm still,
No?
I'm still processing.
Yep.
Would the chair need a complaint to wander into this? Or would this be part of the chair's responsibility to, like, would someone have to object to it being different? Or would it be part of the chair's responsibility to monitor them and make sure that,
Through the chair, I would say both. So a member could, or the chair could.
okay.
Okay, please.
thank you, Madam Chair. Page 47, we not corrected, but amended reference to updated legislation in 611. And 631, just a bit of wordsmithing. No major changes in 632. Again, just wordsmithing. And then 633, this change was proposed earlier in view of the new legislation with regard to Integrity Commissioner. And again, page 49A, that change also was made earlier in view of the legislative changes with regard to new authority of the Integrity Commission. And essentially that's it. We cleaned the resources section. We will update index section. So these are the revisions for discussion consideration, and thank you for your feedback.
Thank you all. We're on the delegations. Is there not reference to delegations in the bylaws?
Madam Chair, I believe there is a reference to
And that
Delegation.
didn't require any changes?
I believe it refers to the delegation procedure, but let's double check that.
Yeah, in the reference, in the resources section 7, I see delegation procedure is mentioned.
In number 7 on page
Page 50,
15,
50.
50.
Mhm. Under,
But there's no thing on delegations because there's a definition of delegations. Is there no clause or anything that says delegations?
Madam Chair, I will double check. I believe there is a provision that states that the board will develop delegation procedure or delegation process.
So maybe I can just help. 5.16.1, delegations will be considered at committee meetings and at a committee of the whole and will be managed in accordance with the delegation procedure. 718. I do think there's a significant need for updating the delegation procedure in light of our experience.
No, sorry, what page did you just read from?
46, so 5.16.1.
5.16.1?
Yeah, public participation in meetings.
5 point.
So our focus really should be on updating the delegation procedure, not so much the bylaws.
Are we doing that or is GPC doing that?
I would recommend we give it a shot
Okay.
to have one package going
So
forward.
the only thing in the bylaws about delegations is that we have them.
Yeah.
Are we worried about the language that says committee meetings and at committee of the whole? Why don't we just say committee
Committee
meetings?
I offer
And that-
another point for consideration.
Trustee King, please.
One of the points that we raised in talking about delegations is possibly having a time limit on the time allowed or the number allowed, and I'm wondering if that would
Go
fit
in the
more with the
bylaws.
bylaws versus the procedural pieces.
Since we've already talked about speaking time for
Yeah.
trustees and things.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, I think so, actually.
Why don't we, through the chair, if we can do some work on
Perfect.
that and then maybe incorporate it into the bylaws, but they have to align.
No, absolutely, without question, but I just think that it would be helpful to have some reference without having to go to a procedure. Because there's a lot of not detail, but there's a lot of, one could say there's a lot of structure around some of these items, and just that statement and might be helpful. Trustee McLean and then Mr. Plotnikoff.
Okay, I just, and through you, Chair, I'll just share that I've been pretty creative at FBEC recently about delegations and trying to create extra time and extra sessions and doing different things. So,
You followed the procedure. That's exactly what's in the procedure that a chair is responsible to do.
okay, but I'm just a little, okay, as long as it still leaves the flexibility to kind of do that in isolated instances, as opposed to become overly structured in a manner that ties the hands a little bit, because yeah, I think especially with the budget, I think it's when I think it's important to have, we have extended periods of time. We have always, since I've been here at least, created unique opportunities for, often multiple days of nothing, solely dedicated. So.
And I personally, sorry.
Yeah, I'm good.
Just my comment is the procedures allowed for exactly what you did in very creative ways. What the procedures I think need to do is add some restrictions in front of a regular committee meeting.
Okay.
Because even though it provides guidance to chairs about not, I mean, the language in it is pretty clear in terms of not disturbing the content of the meeting. The 7-hour delegation times or the 4-hour delegation times are problematic, especially if some meetings aren't starting till, well, I don't know if committee meetings should start later too, frankly, to support the working trustees. I think that's part of our discussion at our options. And the other thing that we've always floated around that I'm still a big fan of, frankly, is once a quarter, once a term, having more of a free-for-all conversation about where people can come in and speak. Anyway, about any subject, since I'm also hoping one of the provisions we're going to add is that delegations are only provided at that committee if the item is on the committee agenda. So
Through the chair, that's our plan as staff to update or at least provide some recommendations to change the delegation procedure. There's a lot to work on there. We have strong concerns about some of the delegations, and I do think it helps chairs. If I do think it helps chairs if we do have very clear, perhaps stronger rules on managing them, but also taking into consideration the need to be thinking out of the box to manage large numbers. Staff delegations by staff is one example, which does raise some concerns that we have, because there are other avenues. So we'll take a look at the procedure. We'll take a look at amending the bylaw as well to incorporate some basic elements of it, because I think it's very important to have this all in one document. Thank you.
So I'm really grateful to the work of the committee. It feels like we have that one piece left. And I'm really excited that it's only 4:10 in the afternoon. Any other comments from committee members, or I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So thank you to staff for the continued responsiveness and the really great work. I'm also very pleased with the progress. Thank you to colleagues.
Thank you very much, Trustee King, and I'm assuming you're moving a motion to
Yeah,
adjourn.
I'm happy to move adjournment.
Oh, we need to vote on the receipt of what we talked about or just motions? We're voting. Oh,
Through the chair, can I suggest a motion to refer back to staff to further update in
as
light of
per
the
committee discussion. Trustee McLean is moving that and I think trustee King is seconding that. All in
Yes.
favor? Thank you
Aye.
so much. And now, and trustee King expressed thanks to staff. That could be in the minutes too.
Can I, through the chair, can I add those thanks as well?
This
has
whole
been
committee is so grateful for
So
our work
grateful.
together.
bylaws. That's like some heavy lifting. So couldn't express the appreciation enough to staff, to my fellow colleagues on the committee.
And you'll all be interested to note, especially Debbie and Dee, because you're on OPSPA and Dan. So I sent the documents we had worked on already to Jennifer McIntyre and Stephanie Donaldson, and I got back a wow. So I think that no, it's been great reaching the consensus. So thank you, and a motion to adjourn. Trustee McLean, seconded by trustee Williams. All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you so much.